Hey friends, Lauren here at Mill City Roasters. We've been talking a lot in the office about sample roasting, and we just wrapped up a new video this week about seasoning roasts and about things that people get wrong and how to make your seasoning roast more successful. That led us to a conversation about what people get wrong during sampling roasts and how to set yourself up for success with sampling. In order to talk about this, I thought I would just do a sample roast, share our parameters, and then while our sample roast is in the drum, we can talk a little bit about some of the mistakes that people make with their own sample roasting in their facility. So I've got a small batch of coffee here. This is our standard sample size, about 200 grams. Waiting for my temperature on my 500 gram roaster to come down to our charge temp. That's about 360 grams on the drum temp. Once we get close to there, I'm going to open the drum and I'm going to turn on my burners and start my roaster timer. I'm going to go in with a static fuel setting here of 0.8 kPa, which is a little under 25% of the maximum gas that I have for this machine. Now we're roasting. I'm also going to keep this roaster at a static air setting, which is about medium air. On the dial here, it's 55, which is sort of our medium setting. And I'm using a static drum speed. On the dial here, it's 80, and that translates roughly to about 60 RPMs, or 60 rotations on the drum. Now, the reason I decided to talk during this roast and not pay too much attention to the roaster is because our sample roast parameters are set up so that we don't have to do any inputs. I could stand here and watch on data logging screen, track the ROR, and make note of my landmarks, but our sample roast is set up to be consistent and highly repeatable, and that is by design. We want to sample roast every coffee the exact same way without changing anything about it, so we can apply a kind of control to every coffee that comes into our facility so that we can evaluate it identically. So while this is getting going, let's talk about a few things that people get wrong with their sample roast. The first one is this idea or this rumor, I don't know where it started, where roasters tend to say that importers will artificially inflate their cupping scores of their green coffee samples. That is not true. Quality, reputable importers don't lie about cupping scores. They have no reason to. Importers carry a wide range of coffees. If they're specialty importers, those coffees will cup out in the mid to low 80s, all the way up through the high 80s, and over 90 for some of those really special offerings. They need to carry a wide range of coffees because every customer is looking for something different, and every coffee has a home. This idea that coffee gets inflated, or the score gets inflated just to sell more coffee, isn't true. And it probably comes from people who don't have a good sample roasting protocol or don't have strong enough cupping skills. They get those coffees in their shop or their roastery, and it's rated at, or it's graded at maybe 88 or 89, and they taste it and they go, there's no way this is an 88. That score must be wrong. It's not likely that the score is wrong. It's more likely that you're not sample roasting it correctly, or you just haven't calibrated on flavor, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So importers don't inflate their scores. They don't really have a reason to, and if they were doing that, they would get called out immediately by other importers because cupping is pretty universally calibrated. We can all score each other's coffee, and we know if something is not scored accurately. The next thing that seems to happen a lot for sampling, and when sampling goes wrong, is people who are using an incorrect sample size for their roaster. So if you've started your roastery and you've bought a fairly large or medium-sized roaster, a 3K, a 6K, and a 10K, and you're throwing in less than a full pound into that roaster to try to get a sample roast completed, it's not going to roast properly. It's not going to roast correctly. You're going to get pretty big issues caused by heat defect, and it's going to be hard to accomplish that roast within the parameters of the sample roast protocol, meaning that that roast is going to go very, very fast and that coffee is going to get too dark too quickly. You can't use that coffee as a sample, and you can't evaluate it and decide whether or not you want to purchase it because it hasn't been roasted correctly. You really do need a machine that is small enough to accomplish a sample roast. In our lineup, that looks like a 500 gram sample roaster or a 1K or even the digital 2 kg machine, which is a machine that you can go down to a very small sample size, around 300 grams, and as long as your fuel and your airflow are correct, you should be able to accomplish that sample roast time, which should be right around 8, 9, 10 minutes. Again, consistency is key. The other thing that people get wrong is that they're using the wrong machine. I just said it. Consistency is so important. If you've got a sample roaster where you can hit your parameters to target maybe 1 or 2 times, but you can't hit it consistently, and you can't hit it every time, and you can't hit it with every coffee, then that's not the right sample roaster for you. The sample roaster should be able to do exactly what I'm doing. Roast coffee super consistently with no changes on the control panel to a time frame that I can anticipate to within maybe 10 or 20 seconds. There's going to be small changes to do with moisture content in the coffee, but other than that, there aren't any other variables that I need to consider, and that's why this roaster is really purpose-built for sample roasting. Number 4, I talked about it a little bit just a minute ago. Your cupping skills need to be well-honed and well-practiced in order to be an effective sample roaster. If you can't taste the difference between different offerings, or if you can't taste quality versus a low-quality cup of coffee, you shouldn't be sample roasting at all. You should ask someone else to help you evaluate coffee that you're trying to purchase, or probably more importantly, you should work on your cupping skills before you get very deep into purchasing and evaluating green coffee. Improving your cupping skills can look a lot of different ways. It can be cupping regularly as part of a team, cupping with a group of other roasters. It helps to cup with other people who are very good cuppers because calibrating to their language is important. There are tasting exercises that you can do. You can set up sensory exercises for yourself using smell kits or like little flavor solutions. But in reality, it just has to do with tasting a lot of coffee and taking very good notes. We cup a lot in our roasting classes because we really want to drive home that that skill set is super important. Just listening for first crack. I think I'm close. There it is. All of us are good tasters, and I mean that. Everyone is a good taster. You can taste something and know if you like it or don't like it, and that is an excellent place to start. To be a great cupper, you need to be able to subjectively taste coffee and make notes about it regardless of your personal preference. And once you hone in that skill set, then you can start to really evaluate samples at an expert level. The last thing that people get wrong about sample roasting is that they don't have the right production roaster to take the next step. This small machine is where we make purchasing decisions, and we can profile coffees to establish recipes or profiles for what roast we want to apply to that coffee. But if we don't have a large production roaster that we can take that information and scale it up to and apply it to, then it's not helpful. You're either stuck doing all of your production roasting here, or you go over to your production roaster and you throw all of this valuable information out of the window because your production roaster can only roast coffee one way. So a high quality system to sample roast on and a high quality system to do production roasts on is very required. When we're talking about specialty coffee, we're talking about dense, high-grown, high-elevation coffees that have great acidity and great sweetness. You need a machine that can unlock those flavors, penetrate the seed with heat, and develop good profiles. So a high-quality production roaster is necessary. Coming up on the end of my roast here, we are about a minute 15 from the start of first crack, so about 15 seconds. I'm going to get this roast out of the drum and into the cooling tray. Perfect. There we go. Give it a little swirl to start cooling it down, and then let the fan take care of the rest. Now this coffee is ready to rest for 12 to 24 hours. Here at Mill City, we utilize a 24-hour rest period for all samples. Right now, it's about 10 a.m., so that means we can cup this coffee tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and we can get a very, very good full evaluation over whether or not this is a coffee that we'd like to purchase. The big takeaways here are that we roasted it very, very consistently. It's roasted identically to how all of our other sample roasts are roasted. And it may seem fast. It's about an 8 minute, 10 second roast, and it is fast. Remember, the purpose of a sample roast is to intentionally underdevelop your coffee so that you can identify defects in the green, in the processing, or in the harvesting. If you can't taste those defects and you can only taste the roast, your sample roast is too developed. So you've got to calibrate to some of those light, bright, slightly vegetal flavors, because that's where you're going to pick up any defect in your green coffee, especially related to processing. So again, just to review those parameters, we went in at about a 360-degree charge, 200-gram charge weight. We went in with 0.8 kPa of gas, a little under 25% of our max gas, medium air, and 60 RPM on the drum. That's our sample roast. And hopefully your sample roast can look kind of similar. If you have other questions about sample roasting or any of our equipment, let us know in the comments. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.